Hey everyone, we're here with Mark from Quiet Earth in Ontario, right? I got that right?
Yeah, that's
Sweet.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was like, I almost said Toronto, and I'm like, it's not Toronto, it's Ontario.
Yes. I mean, technically Toronto is fine. Like everyone, I would say like all the bands from sort of our local area, they just say Toronto because it's a lot easier, but I appreciate the accuracy.
Yeah, try to be. Thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks for reaching out. I really dig the fucking band.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm glad you dig the tunes.
Hell yeah. So, where did Quiet Earth start?
Yeah, so Quiet Earth was I guess sort of like it's as it always has been. It was a fun project that started with me and the drummer Ian. Uh, it's funny how quick time goes. I was thinking about this the other day as we're sort of getting ready to put out a debut record. It's been almost 10 years now, which is kind of nuts. It just shows you how long this shit takes to go. But
Yeah,
yeah. So we just two of us kind of playing some music and you know wanting to both of us had basically, long story less long, had wanted to play music together for quite some time. Things, location things going on kind of just didn't work out at that time, and now we got the project together. We were finally like close enough proximity to jam kind of regularly, and I mean it's still fun, but to think that we're still doing it now is kind of crazy, and to be putting out a full length is something I think we never thought we would do with this project. So yeah,
sure.
it started like many bands do in a parent's basement many many years ago.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, you don't have anything else, right? Like
Yeah.
you all you have is like your hopes and your dreams and shit. That's to keep hold of them and continue it, 10 years later is, that's pretty fucking phenomenal in itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, doing anything for a long period. I don't know about you, but like for me, I'm very stubborn and I'm very like I hold on to things. So I like in some ways it's like I don't like to give up on things. So it's kind of not surprising, but also at the same time, yeah, it's shocking because it's just like 10 years is a long time. I didn't think I would be doing
Yeah.
this for so long. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So
Yeah.
you're saying this is, the upcoming release on October 15th is
It's gonna be the 18th, sorry.
oh 18th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I specify because I'm stupid and I get a lot of shit
No,
wrong.
no. It's all good. Yeah.
Um, so coming out on the 18th, that is your debut album.
Yeah, it's our debut full length. We've done three other EPs, and we've done a handful of covers for some labels, but this was sort of our first stab at doing like a full length release. And you know, I always it's you know I always say, like, at least with this album, we probably started at the worst time to do a record. We didn't think about it at the point in time, but we started writing it at the end of 2019, um, rolling into 2020. Everything shut down for a while, and it was right while we were in the middle of writing this album, and a lot changed in that period of time. Like
Yeah.
our drummer has had two kids in that time. I have shifted many jobs. I have bought a house, got a dog in that time. Our bass player has also moved around a lot of different jobs. So it was like, a lot of life was moving around, and we still came together to make this record. And the other thing too is, even after doing something for so long, I'm still happy with these songs,
Yeah.
which is uh which is not something maybe I would have said like so many years after putting out other material. But yeah, so it's been quite a journey to get this record out.
So do you think uh like age and wisdom and trial and error in the past has helped you formulate like the songs that uh apparently, are for you are lasting, right? Have a
Yeah,
lasting
absolutely. I'm not sure. I'm in my apologies. I'm not particularly familiar with your playing background, but I'm sure if anything creatively you do, you learn from trial and error. And I know a lot of the previous material for Quiet Earth was a lot of, for most of us was the first time taking like a band semi seriously.
Mhm.
um, for me, first time I've ever sang in a band was incredibly, and figuring out how to like play riffs and sing and like not dive bomb it while playing it. That was definitely a big part of a lot of the writing for this album for me is was figuring out like, how do I play something I like, but also, fit in more vocals and stuff like that. And I would even say with this record, like it's not as vocal forward as a lot of heavy music is, but um, that has definitely been sort of like a process I've been learning while this band has been going on. So yeah, I think for a lot of us, like a lot of the writing on this record was, not only like learning from past mistakes, but also some of these songs we've been playing live for a long time, and kind of I like that because it's like an experience of going through and really sort of woodshedding that material
Yeah.
and figuring out like, hey, like, you know, what kind of reaction does it get from a crowd? Like, do we like playing it? And like really sort of refining a songs that way, I think was really, really helpful this time around.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess having so much time between like writing it, recording it, and releasing it, you've got plenty of time to go, oh, that one's freaking awesome. We definitely keep that. And this one, well, we need to tweak it because it kind of sucks, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so you say you started writing it at a really bad time, but shit, maybe that was the perfect time. Or, obviously it was the perfect time for you all to start writing that.
Absolutely, and I think some ways too, I think it's part of the process of being maybe more proud of this record, at least from my perspective. There was a lot of material that, there's full on songs that I think that we just tore apart completely and rewrote new material out of, basically being like, talking about that whole sort of like, playing it live and see how it goes. Certain songs didn't do so well. There's a particular song that we're going to be putting out in a while for a single, and I remember one of the first times we played it live. It's funny, we were playing in this a small town Quebec, and it wasn't a big audience out by any means, but there was like this group that showed up, and typically for like Quiet Earth shows, like a lot of smaller bands, it's a lot of people just kind of staring blankly at you while you
Yes.
play. And I remember we played this song, in particular, there's parts in it that I really like, and I just saw this group of five people, proceed to beat the living shit out of each other, and I was like, this is working. This is good. This is a good song. So a lot of that helps along the way.
Yeah. Well, that audience reaction, I think that helps a lot of bands. It really helps like hone their sound. It helps hone their live show too, because shit, if a band goes out there and they're boring,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know.
It sucks. Yeah. I think that's and I kind of, I do love that, honestly, is the how like specifically I would say like Canadian concert going culture that I'll see is like people are obviously very polite, but you can immediately tell when people are bored.
Oh
And
yeah.
I do like that. I do appreciate that. It's like try better. And
Yeah.
like I'm by no means like an extremely like outgoing, like rah rah kind of like get the crowd going sort of thing, but I can definitely tell when it's like if something I'm playing sucks or isn't good, you know, the
It's
phone tells no lies. Yeah, yeah.
and it's a total change with, being a front man in a band is
Mm,
you're like, I'm not a real rah-rah guy. Well, fuck, this song sucks. Maybe I need to rah-rah you dudes, let's get you going a
sure.
bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
How funny is that? So, like for you, when you started playing music, who were some of the bands that like sparked your interest?
That's a really good question. particularly, I always view it like this with I'll talk about it in songwriting particularly because I was sort of late to the game when I started playing in bands and stuff like that. Mainly just because life was busy at the time. But when I got down to it, and particularly when it comes to heavy music, I always are you familiar with the Canadian band Bison by any chance?
I am, yep.
Yeah. So I always credit they have this record. Their third album's called Lovelessness. And I really credit that for getting me into writing, more like heavy extreme metal music because, you for a long period of time before that, a lot of heavy music I was listening to wasn't necessarily bad, but it was about the like fantastical elements.
Yes.
And this record came out, and it's like one of the first metal records I really heard that was about like, losing loved ones and loss. And just something about that sort of whole experience was really, and like they weren't like shreddy type of guys. Like their music wasn't like particularly like some of it is very technical, but like particularly this record, it was very slow and brooding. And something really hit me about that where I was like, okay, this is really sick. This is something I that speaks to me and something I want to attribute writing wise. And another big heavy band for me like that was Torch. I love the combination. Everything I try to write musically, particularly when it comes to heavy music, it's always this balance. I'm trying to do this balance of like heavy, punishing stuff with melody and, the sense of melodicness
Yeah.
because I think that combination together makes things seem a lot heavier and also like you need that dynamic. So for me, like those are, two bands that come to mind that very much so were like an inspiration to start writing and playing music.
It's funny, a lot of people don't really talk about the dynamics of music, and I think you're right. Like if something's super heavy, like I like heavy stuff, but it needs
Yeah.
to be heavy and make me want to like groove with it of sorts. Right?
Yeah.
There has to be something that draws me in because shit, we can play something super heavy, but where's it going? And
Yeah.
where's it been? I want to be on a fucking journey with the song.
Absolutely. I always I heard someone say this once. It's like, it's like to speak with more metaphors, I guess, but it's like painting with one color.
Hmm.
And it's like you need more. And I think even like the heavy bands that I really like that are very like dissonant and gross sounding, um, they sneak melody in weird ways. You have to do it somehow. Otherwise, like you said, it's just boring.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just boring as shit. Like, a lot of the deathcore bringing in like the keys to go over top, which is kind of nice. Cause again, right, it's super heavy, but then you have these keys that are, maybe dark and haunting or whatever, and you're like, oh, I can kind of, really go with
I can
this.
do this. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't I don't know what I was gonna say.
Okay. I was actually gonna ask you a question.
Sure.
What was your sort of like what was your introduction to like heavy music and
Mm.
stuff like that? Where does that start for you?
God, honestly, that starts for me a long time ago. My dad, God, it's so funny. It's such a weird story. Now, this is about 45 years ago, pretty close to
Okay.
it. Um, my dad was like worked at the factory, he was a GM guy, and then on the side he did leather work. Well, we had a dude that lived in our town. His name was Dean Battles.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna say this, and I hope people aren't offended. Dean was I'm gonna say retarded, but he's like slow.
Okay.
The story I got was he was hit by a semi truck. So
Oof.
like, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
but like he was an older dude and like turned me on to music. So I mean, I don't know, somewhere between like 5 and 8. He started turning me on to Slayer and Iron Maiden and God, Judas Priest and Metallica and just all of that like thrash and heavy from shit the early 80s. That was my introduction.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. That's quite the intro.
yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
dude, I can tell we lost contact for I say we lost contact for a lot of years, but I didn't see him a lot, right? Because
Sure.
he's probably in his 20s when I was single digits. Well, when I was 12, had to be 12. It was probably April of like 1989. He goes, "Hey man, we crossed paths in town," and he's like, "Hey, I've got this tape. I think that I don't like it. I think you'll really like it." And I'm like, "Okay, like I'll come over and get it." And he handed me Nirvana's Bleach.
Oh shit. There you go.
I was like, and I fucking was like all of a sudden nuts for Nirvana. So all my friends were like, "That sucks," and I'm like, "Fuck you, you're crazy, dude. This is great."
Yeah.
Uh,
You'll get it. You'll get it eventually.
yeah, yeah, and they fucking did. But
Yeah.
hell yeah, that um, I think that was like the catalyst for me really digging into more underground music
Okay. Yeah.
because I feel like the underground's where the cutting edge is. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
people they're not afraid to be themselves. They play music that they want to play, and the only thing behind it is they want to be creative and create. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no real capital behind it as much. I didn't, it's funny. I always people ask me sometimes like, when did you start going to local shows and stuff? And it wasn't really till I was, um, I moved to Toronto about, a similar time, honestly, to when I started Quiet Earth. This was probably 10 years ago. Um, and like I had been in small town Ontario before that, and there wasn't necessarily a ton of a local heavy scene. There'd be like shows that would roll through town from time to time, but it wasn't like there's something that was happening
right?
like 3, 4 nights a week kind of thing until I moved to Toronto. And then it was like, I just got hit
Um,
with this wave of local bands. And, it's even stuff now that I'm like, I still find like pretty influential. It's funny what like sticks with you over time.
yeah. Well, it's like um, the biggest thing with music, I think, is that there's something in there that will connect with someone, right?
Mm,
Like, uh, I don't remember who said it, but someone was like, "It doesn't matter how good of a band you are, you put it out there, and someone is gonna like it." And
absolutely. Yeah.
you hear some of the shit, and you're like, "How do people like that at all?" But everyone's got taste, which is again the beauty of music. It's just finding that one thing that you connect with, you know?
Absolutely. I think the same. I would use that same token for like small, like I don't want to say small, but like independent bands as well, and people starting out. I remember one of the first ish sort of Quiet Earth shows when things were really going for us. Like we were starting to pick up some steam, play some more shows. We played this like Thursday night show, and nobody was there. Nobody's there, but there's this one lady. I remember I was playing we were playing our set. I noticed there's this one lady in the front row who was just like going all out, having a great time. And I was like, like usually it's like people come out to our shows, I usually know most of these people. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. And she came up to us after the show and she's like, hey, like, I really like your music. Like I don't get to like go out often to see bands. I got a babysitter this evening to look after my kids. Thanks for a great show. Like I'm going home. And it's like that's not who I ever would have expected to come to one of our shows, but that's the thing. You never know.
Right.
So
Well,
I
it's
always say just keep going. Yeah.
that's it, right? You never know when that one person is gonna really connect, and I think that's one of the important things with being a band is you've got to put out there, and it's like social media today. You just have to put out there, go be out there and create content, which is releasing music, whether it be singles or albums or EPs, um, promoting the shows and playing shows and talking to people like, hey, it's a fucking sales job, and
Yeah.
people don't, I guess they don't typically look at a band like a sales job, but shit, it is.
Yeah.
What do you want the band to be is how much sales you have to do. If you just want to have
Yeah.
fun with it, put out your music and go play shows sometimes, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, what bands are you listening to right now, um, that you think other people should be listening to?
Absolutely. Sure. It's so I do, like you, I do music podcasting stuff, and I don't know about you, but I'm sure you hear a ton of music all the time.
Yes.
And for me, I'm always looking. I like heavy music. I think heavy music is like this big umbrella. I like to see people take risks and do new things
Yeah.
in heavy music. You know, within like I'll start locally first. Within my own sort of local scene, I've noticed over the last few years, there's a lot of young people doing some really cool and creative stuff with heavy music, stuff that I wouldn't think of myself because I'm so guitar based. Um, but there's a lot of groups like there's a local group called Dr. Cement that does a lot of really cool stuff with like sampling heavy music and like kind of putting like an electronic twist.
Yeah.
As old man of me as I can describe it, that's what it sounds like to me. It's very kind of Godflesh with a bit more of a electronic music kind of twist, and I really really dig it. So there's tons of bands like that within my like local community that are doing just so much interesting stuff with heavy music. Not like just shredding their guitar in the basement all the time, but like using like a DAW and like practically setting up songs. Um, as far as like international artists go, I've been really loving this band lately called Crippling Alcoholism. Uh, the best way I can describe it, yeah, I know it's a punishing name,
Yes.
um, is they describe themselves as David Bowie in hell. Um,
Okay.
so it's like really dark, morose kind of like pop songs from like a heavy music background, and it's super dark, but it's some of the most catchy music I've ever heard.
I've got to
And
listen to
so
that now.
it's honestly, I'll tell you right now, it's the best album I've heard all year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And yeah, so for me, I like to see heavy music that takes, risks because I think
Yeah.
heavy music has always been a genre that particularly in the early days was doing stuff that people didn't necessarily understand right away, but had like an energy behind it.
Yeah.
And I never want to become that person that's complacent and being like, all the best music was released when I was, a teenager or 20, because that's never going to be the case. And I think if you feel that way, you're just not looking hard enough. There's stuff you can find.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I was listening to a buddy's band a few months ago, Blessed Black out of Cincinnati. I fucking love those
Yeah.
dudes. Like in my mind, it's just like really good rock and roll, and Murphy has got a set of pipes on him that is out of this fucking world. So I'm listening
Okay.
to them at like on Spotify, and the playlist just keeps going and this song comes on and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like I gotta, it's like I gotta figure out what the hell that is. And I see this song named California, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can dig this. So the
Yeah.
band is Fire Down Below. They're out of Belgium. So I grabbed the album and I put it on, and holy shit, that whole album is like, oh, it's desert rock, is what it is.
Yeah.
And it hits you from the beginning with Cocaine Hippo, and the whole fucking album is like first couple of songs are similar to each other, right? Then it moves and they've got like some surf shit, and it like takes you on this journey of these v very different styles of music, and it's just like, holy fuck. That is
Wow, there you
like,
go.
it's so much. It was just so much fun. Like I listen to that album almost every day.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Like,
Desert rock from Belgium, eh? Like
yeah,
that's yeah. I love how that's like there's you know, everything it feels like now specifically, and maybe this is like a very like older person thing to say, but it's like everything is happening all the time, right? You don't have any like specific musical movements. Like if you want to find something, there's probably like a new thrash band from I don't know, the Yukon to like you know, experimental black metal happening in like who knows where, like maybe South Africa or something. Like
right.
things are happening constantly.
They really are. We actually had this conversation Saturday night. We were at a show, me and a couple of buddies, and my one buddy goes, I don't remember exactly what he was looking for, but it was some really weird mix of like black metal and like country picking or something. My other buddy
Okay.
goes, "Oh yeah, check this band out. They're out of like Nashville, fucking they do that. Like it's got other stuff too, but you'll find that in there." And I'm just like, "Holy shit, like
You can
you
find everything.
you literally can. Like you
Yeah.
might not like it. It might not be what you expect, but it's out there for sure."
Yeah, that's just you know one of the things I always try to I say now is you know yeah, like when we're kids, everything's very like black or white, right? Like
Yeah.
this sucks, this is amazing, and I just try to say now like this isn't for me, you know? Like I just there's a lot of things now I realize I'm like I just don't get this, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get it at some point, but it's just not for me, and that's totally okay.
Nope. And you know, you run across a lot of bands. I'm sure you do too. You run across a lot of bands, and there are bands that like when I listen to the album, I'm like, it just doesn't click with me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'll go see the band because I'm a real live show energy kind of guy. I want to see like, what do you have? What can you bring? How does the crowd react? And s- there was a band, actually, Howling Giant out of Nashville. I
Okay.
tried to listen to a couple of their albums, and I was like it's okay, you know, but it just didn't click with me. And I saw them live, and I
Sure.
was like, I get it. I absolutely get it now.
Yeah.
Oh God. So now I listen to Glass Future a lot, probably a couple of times a week.
Yeah. Was there you know, I keep a mental list of this often. It was like, you know, bands I saw live. I'd never heard one of my favorite things to do is go to a show early, particularly if I've bought, you know, it's a big show, for example, and try and go see like a band that I've never heard of
Yeah.
before. Um, you know, was there a particular band you ever saw that you hadn't heard of before seeing them live that kind of like blew you away?
You know, honestly, there are a lot of bands like that.
Mm,
Um, the there's two that come to mind. The first one is like they're in the stoner vein,
okay.
out of Evansville, Indiana, called Fairy Ring. It's Faerie,
Okay.
and then Ring, right?
Yeah.
We went to see, I think I went to see Paul Bearer, and
Okay.
I want to get there early because I want to, you know, what other talent is on the bill?
Yeah.
And they played. I talked to them a little bit before the show, and they had some really cool vinyl. And I said, "Oh, I'm buying a vinyl just because it looks cool as shit." And then they got up there, and dude, if you look at them, you're like, I don't know, you it could go either way, but they kick you in the dick and like
Yeah.
just absolutely blew my mind. Um,
Okay.
and then the other one is a local band here called Redivider. They do death metal, and I tried for months, probably 6 or 8 months to see them. I was at a show in Indianapolis, and they were on the bill, and the band before them is playing, and the fucking power went out. Like, I am here at the show. Can you guys just
Yeah.
play? Um, so I missed them like 4 or 5 times, and then finally I'm at a show and they played, and I was just like, holy fuck, like
Yeah.
this is what I want with death metal. They were great. What about you?
Yeah. The first one that always comes to mind. They're not a band anymore, but they're a bit. They're the group that's now Cult Leader. But I saw this band called Gaza play opening for Torch many years ago, and it was by far. I remember, seeing it, being like, "This is by far the heaviest band I've ever heard." It was just such an intense show. That one sticks out to me a lot. And then the other one is a band that I also don't think's around anymore, but there's a band called Bummer from Kansas City.
Hmm.
Um, they're like everything I love about noise rock music. It's like super. It was super simple but super heavy riffs.
Yeah.
It wasn't super flashy, but really great grooves and just really great understanding of like songwriting mechanics. And the other thing that I maybe will they'll make sense to people as well is like they were because a lot of bands like I think obtain heaviness through like down tuning a
Hmm.
lot. These guys played in D standard and it was like super heavy and it's like, oh yeah, you don't have to use like uh the status quo that people use to get like heavy tones. Like this is just very like
Yeah.
very basic but like super good. So those are like definitely um the two bands that come to mind when I think of that question for sure.
Yeah. There's another one too. You said noise, and we've got a band here called Bad Wires.
Okay.
Um, all the dudes are fantastic. Now the band has been through a number of drummers, and they've only been together since 2016.
Okay.
I saw them with fuck, this bill was so it was so good. There's a band out of Lexington called Crop,
Okay.
that are absolutely fantastic. Then Bad Wires played, and then which Crop is like they're a doom band, and then Bad Wires is the best way to describe it is they're in the noise vein, but they
Okay.
they mix punk and metal and whatever they whatever else they can grab, literally. And then Extinction AD headlined, and they're crossover thrash, whatever you want to call them. Um,
Yeah.
so so it's a really cool bill, but like, and all the bands fucking rocked. But dude, Bad Wires, they did. I gotta think. Corey broke his wrist year and a half, 2 years ago, so they were on hiatus for a long time, and they played with Child Bite
Okay.
here, and I was just like, holy fuck, it's been a minute since I've seen you, obviously, because of broken wrist.
Yeah.
Oh, my fucking mind was blown again. And their new drummer, Andy, is is out of this world, just fucking fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually one comes to mind right now. Now that we're speaking about this, I'm not like a big grindcore guy, but I do listen to it from time to time. I remember I was covering a festival for somebody, and again, this is another band that's not around anymore, from my understanding. But they're from Buffalo, New York. They're called Gas Chamber, and they came out, very weird setup. It kind of sounds like a jazz band playing grindcore music, and their front person had like this. It looked like an organ that they kind of like rigged out into like a noise set from like a noise like pedal set from what I could understand, and
Yeah.
they were just like ripping this thing in half, and it was one of the weirdest sounding, most chaotic, but also like one of the best live shows I've ever seen.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
and I think they have like one album to their name. That's it.
That's so awesome. Like, and that's what I mean about like in the underground, right? When you're in the underground, you find these bands, there's nothing to lose. They're not trying to secure the next record deal or anything. They're like, we're going to do this. We're going to have fun. We're going to get crazy.
Yeah,
And you have no idea what's going to happen out there.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Rock and roll. So let's go back to your album
Sure.
because that's where we started. 'Cause
Yeah, yeah. We
I'm
got on a
so
tangent here.
I'm so random as shit. Yeah. So how long did it take you all to actually write that album from the point of writing till the point that you like recorded it and finished?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, we started writing it in 2019. Um, the only like I would say like about half the songs kind of get broken up into two eras, and they're like pre post pandemic, like pre pandemic, and then post pandemic is the
Yeah.
way I like to describe it. And I would say one of the songs on there is about 5 years old, which is Jesus, but I'm glad it's coming out.
Yeah.
Um, and then we wrote half of it probably about I want to say 2 years ago now. So they're very split up in that regard. It's kind of how long it took us to write them. Um, but we did a lot of editing and revising on it in a way. Yeah, so it kind of took us that long, and then honestly, like the lyrics took even longer for me. But I had ideas in my mind. I just needed to revise them, and then it took us about a year to record it. We went in three different sessions to kind of break everything up. And the one thing I will say is like recording never totally goes the way you plan it to go ever.
Never.
So
Right.
it was interesting to say the least, but I was very happy with how it all came together in the end. But it was definitely a long slog from beginning of working on this to getting towards the end where we are now.
So when did you finish recording it?
We finished recording it, I want to say about a year ago to around now. Yeah, about a year ago. We finished recording it. Um, and then we took a long time to mix. We had, I had a lot of, I wanted to get a lot of guest vocals on the record as well, because I'm not like a great singer by any means. I can do a thing. I can do a thing, and I'm happy with the thing I can do. But like we were talking about earlier, I always want there to be more dynamics,
Yeah.
and you know, it's hard to keep someone's attention span going for a full record if you're kind of doing one thing. So I wanted to add a lot of dynamics in.
Well, unless
We had
it's
a
really good, right?
Yeah,
Like
unless it's really good.
if
Yeah,
you do that one thing really, really well, you're going to keep people's attention. And that's look
it's
at,
tough.
look at AC/DC. It's the same thing on every album. And,
That's true.
they've been making the same album for 50 years now.
On a quick aside, AC/DC is something I've recently just clicked for me,
Ugh,
where I was like, I get it now. Like I didn't get it for a long period of time, and then it's like it's past a certain threshold. I'm like, this is really good rock and roll music.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's all it is just good rock and roll. You know,
yeah,
you who made who and Hell's Bells and like whatever. It just is what it is. And that's why they've lasted is because they've always made just really good rock and roll. It doesn't
absolutely.
have to be like flashy and crazy and do
And they
anything.
have really good. They have incredible guitar tone. Um,
Yes.
But yeah, so it took us about it took us a long time to mix as well. But again, we just didn't want to rush anything. We didn't want to feel like we were jeopardizing anything. So yeah, it took a long time. Probably took a whole year to make the whole thing. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's all right though, right? Like
yeah,
it doesn't have to be recorded in a day or recorded over 10 years or whatever. It's whatever works. I think every album or kind of speaks to what era the band is in. You know what I mean? Every
absolutely.
like look at bands like Deftones. I love Deftones, and you can tell like every album has its own its own vibe, its own sound, its own personality, and I think um, most bands that last have that. There's something unique about that album. So whether it takes a day or 10 years, that's that album, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So
So are you guys putting out, like, what's the physical copies look like?
yeah, so we are working with a label called Ancient Temple Recordings, out of East Coast of Canada. Um, we're just doing a cassette run with them for now because that's sort of what's kind of like feasible for us, and it's kind of what I want to do. Like, sure, vinyl would be great. Maybe one day we'll do it. But I also don't want to be having stacks of vinyl boxes in my house right now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing a cassette release for now, which I'm very excited about. I'm gonna pick the tapes up next week, um, and we're gonna do a run of some other merch. But yeah, I'm very excited to have it, and yeah, for people to get their hands on it.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm the vinyl guy. I do have some tapes, but I don't buy any new tapes now at all.
Yeah,
Um,
I think people like I think one of the reasons people like tapes so much is because they are like I'm a vinyl guy like you as well, but the price of vinyl is like I used to buy a lot of things and now I'm finding I'm very picky just because it's like, for me, I'm gonna drop like 50 Canadian on a new record
on
and
a
it's like,
record.
oof,
Yeah.
that can be rough sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I bought one. I guess I didn't realize a buddy sends me. He's like, "Oh, dude, check these out." And I'm looking, and it's like these planetary. It's almost like the solar system on the record, and I'm like, "God, that's fucking cool." So I just kind of clicked buy now and whatever, and I'm like, "Oh shit, that was like $89. What the hell did I do?"
Yep.
Like, "Oh no, fuck."
Yeah, it happens. Those wax mages ones get real expensive.
Yeah, dude. You the ones with like liquid inside. Savage
Nice.
Master, another great band from here. They just had one. I just went and seen them a few months ago, and they had one that was sand filled. It was red sand, so it was blood. You know, it was cool.
Wow,
Yeah. So how much is
that's
that?
crazy.
They're like $100, and I'm like, ah, fuck.
I can believe it if you're putting sand in it. There you
Yeah,
go. Wow.
yeah, yeah. It's ridiculous. Um, all right, Mark. I don't have a lot of time left.
That's
Um,
okay.
Where can everyone find your album when it's released?
Yeah, sounds good. So you can always catch us through our Instagram page at Quiet Earth Toronto. We'll be posting about it there. Ancient Temple Recordings as well, which you can find on Instagram. We'll have links to it as well. We've got a bunch of shows coming up in the near future, and our plan is basically, as much as our time that we have is to tour as much as to tour and play as many shows as possible. So do keep your eyes out there, and we'll be playing a bunch of shows.
Sweet. Are you coming to the States?
No, it's very expensive for Canadian bands to get to the States, but
Yes.
um, I mean, if someone comes to me with an offer to fly us out or something, I probably wouldn't say no. So you never know.
All right. Well, let's hope, because it would be
Yeah, yeah,
great to
yeah.
have you guys over here.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you go and have yourself a great night, and I look forward to seeing the album come out. I might press one on Bandcamp.
Yeah, yeah,
Bandcamp,
yeah. So,
they actually have like the thing where you can do small run vinyl and they
oh,
take care
cool.
of everything. So you don't even
Oh,
have to
really?
stash it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I'll take a look into that for sure.
Yeah. Do that because I'll fucking buy one for sure.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
All right, dude. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for